What's going on, people? This is Sat E Niangi from Wrestle Talk in collaboration with Rest Things. I got a Avengers of Black content creators with me. And I thought, what better way than discuss one of the most prolific, underrated feud in the 90s? What do you think it is, Knowledge?
Ooh, I'm thinking Ahmed Johnson and Farooq.
Oh, he nailed in the first go. I think I'm going to go like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Ric Flair or something like that.
Black feud,
yeah. Yeah, listen.
Dusty and Ric Flair.
Listen, when we were black and young, I used to call Diesel my only black wrestler because the representation was whack. But yeah, we've got a guy here with more knowledge than Jim Cornette. We've got knowledge. We've got a gorilla positioner. We've got an MC. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Skillit. This man, half amazing. If you're a football fan, you know he's Tottenham's biggest, ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, they call him X. But for you guys' expressions, Blackz, and I ain't gonna do you justice, so you do your Rest Things intro.
It's your boy Sam Blackz, Mr. Controversial, Underdone, Fish for the Top 5 Dead or Alive Big Men, Mr. Skillit, Mr. 150,000,000%, Nicky Garcia's baby boy. Immediately, we're here, man.
I want to say thank you so much for coming, guys. Wow, the topic of discussion is basically 90s wrestling representation for black wrestling fans. And I decided to lead with Ahmed Johnson versus Farooq, because for me, as a black wrestling fan in the 90s, I was 5 years old when Ahmed Johnson debuted in WWF, and then it was 1996 when Farooq came along too. So that was the first time me seeing a black versus black wrestler acting on the screen. Again, when I was a kid, Virgil, Coco Beware, and Kamala were the only black wrestlers around in terms of representation. So I used to gravitate towards Diesel as my ideal figure of what a wrestling superstar should be. So that's what I meant in that regards. He wasn't black, I wasn't that stupid. I know what a black person looked like. I looked in the mirror. But yes. But Knowledge, brother, I brought you for a reason. You're the man that knows a lot about wrestling history. Laid down the tapestry of what it was in the 90s for black wrestlers.
The 1990s was pretty much the same. The start of the 1990s was pretty much the same as the 80s, in that professional wrestling promotions, they still kind of had the one in, one out mentality. So in the 80s, like when promoters had black wrestlers, they usually only had one in the promotion, and it was like, okay, we've got one, we're good, we don't need any more, sort of thing. And it kind of fed its way into the 90s. So in the WWF, you had Coco Beware, and you had Virgil, who wasn't even used as a wrestler. He was Ted DiBiase's manslave. And you had the vignettes of him massaging Ted DiBiase's feet, and then Roddy Piper taught him how to read so he could spell his name and all this shit. And it's just like, that's the representation that black people had in that particular promotion. And in WCW, they had more black wrestlers, but they weren't well, Ron Simmons, Dusty tried to push Ron Simmons to a world championship level, but it didn't really work out. But they had PN News, and who was not in the early 90s, like I'm talking about the early 90s. So like, and we had PN News, and you had Brickhouse Brown, all these other guys in WCW, but there wasn't really any representation, as in someone that you could get behind as a fan. Junkyard Dog came back. He came back, and he was a failure as well, unfortunately.
What about Rocky Johnson, Black?
Rocky Johnson wasn't working.
And Tony Atlas and that. They had belts, fam.
80s, 70s.
Well, Tony Atlas actually got a job in 1990 for Vince McMahon.
Don't mention that.
And yeah.
Let's say it.
John Barnes and that.
No, they got Tony Atlas in Mr. Universe and Mr. USA, and they made him Saba Simba. They made him an African
Can I say one thing
Zulu.
about that though?
Tell me.
Don't get me wrong. The gimmick is very terrible, and the gimmick is very stereotypical, and it's a horrible gimmick.
But at that time, Tony Atlas was homeless, and Vince gave him a job. So I'll give Vince that. I'll give him that. But it's a terrible stereotypical gimmick. I'll give you that. So.
Boomer mentality, bro. You got a black wrestler. He said, I'm gonna make you African. Go wrestle barefoot.
Which was so weird, because he was already an established wrestler as Mr. America, Mr. USA. So it's like, why would you repackage him as that? But anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, and then you had, the two major promotions. Then you had, a couple other guys. Too Cold Scorpio was big on indies at the time, but I mean, yeah, it was just pretty much one in, one out. It changed as the 90s progressed. Yeah. So you had a couple more wrestlers. It just depended on who was in charge of these particular promotions at the time. In WCW, when Bill Watts came in, he hired a lot more black wrestlers, because Bill Watts was into hiring black wrestlers and pushing them, because he felt that if you push black wrestlers, well, then the black audience would follow. That was his whole mentality. And then when Jim Ross came into WWE, he really tried to push for more black wrestlers getting jobs. But
Shout out to Jim Ross for that.
All day.
yeah, so I mean, so that was the picture of the 1990s. Paul New Jack popped along at that time, but we'll speak about New Jack later on. But I mean, he's an underrated figure in the wrestling business for the 1990s in terms of influence. But yeah, that's what the 90s were like. It was still the one in, one out mentality, especially in places like the two major promotions.
Bingo. And now we get to like 1995, late 1995. My first exposure to Ahmed Johnson was Survivor Series 1985. When was your first exposure to Ahmed Johnson, guys? X.
Bro, listen, yeah, my memories of Ahmed Johnson, I just remember, big man thing, he had about 4 moves in it. Like I remember the spine buster, the Pearl River plunge, he had like a power slam, and then some stiff clothesline, bruv. You know what I mean? He had about 4 moves, yeah. So like I just remember, and I know his music was bad as well. Like, I liked his music still. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not gonna lie, like when I actually think back, I used to think that Ahmed Johnson was the guy. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's only until I've actually gone and I've looked back, do you know what I mean, and rewatched it, and I was like, yeah, like nowadays, man ain't keeping up, innit? Like he's got that Ronda Rousey mic skills. Do you know what I mean? Nah, big man thing, Ronda Rousey mic skills, got 4 moves. It's like Goldberg, like mad stiff. Like if Keith Lee can't catch a break, yeah, how's that guy gonna be doing anything like nowadays, innit? But so for me, I sort of rated him a lot higher. And then when I watched back and I saw how Farooq batted him, obviously we're gonna get into this, innit? But Farooq, bro, that's my guy, bro. You get me? When man arrived, you get me Lawrence Fishburne with the Magneto helmet, blood, dressed like Optimus Prime, blood. You know what I'm saying, fam? Farooq, my guy, bro. Shattered man's rib. You get me? I thought Steve Austin arrived the way that rib shattered, but I couldn't believe it. You know what I'm saying? So like, when I watched that back and I realized how Farooq was the guy for me, innit? Like Ahmed Johnson had his time, had his shine, won the belt. You know what I mean? But for me, when Farooq arrived and then you get me turned man into Uncle Ahmed and that, yeah? Do you know what I mean? Uncle Ahmed, yeah? I mean, we don't want to say the other name, fam. Yeah, shout out Thomas and that. But you get me? Uncle Ahmed, like, Farooq really showed man the levels, innit? Do you know what I'm saying?
Blackz, what about you, man?
Yeah, man, when he won the IC title against Goldust, you know.
Best match, by the way.
Yeah, literally. Literally, and Vince was going crazy. Oh, Ahmed Johnson!
And that when he was being fondled, blood.
Bro,
like,
literally,
kiss
bro.
of life and that.
Man's literally doing CPR in the ring,
Yeah, that
bro.
was
It's
it.
mad. I was stunned. I was thinking, man's really doing CPR in the ring. Like, what is he on? Going on top and yeah. Anyway, but you know what I'm saying, like
Well, that made Goldust as well, because you had like Razor Ramon that didn't want to work with Goldust. Luckily, Roddy Piper stepped in, so that whole scene made Goldust into a effective devious heel. Skillit, brother.
Yeah.
Now, for me, obviously, like you said, you mentioned, because obviously I was lucky and privileged. I had older brothers, so they were educating me on wrestling beyond WWE. So I knew about WCW and all that. So I grew up watching like the likes of Stone Cold Scorpio and Booker T. So you had your black heroes there, but like he said, in WWE, you never really had any like black heroes. So Ahmed, when he first arrived in the scene, and I think it might have been Survivor Series when I first saw him.
Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, I think that's when I first saw him, and I was just like, this guy could be the first ever black. The whole family was gassed. We thought he was gonna be the first ever black WWE champion. We thought Vince was gonna push him to the moon. I remember collecting Power Slam magazines, and you had like white fans writing in talking about how much they love Ahmed. And I was like, when you got white people loving the street, he wasn't like your typical black wrestler either. He was a street guy. He was straight like ghetto. Talking, I'm gonna beat you upside your head. That's how he was talking. And I was like, right, okay, if this guy can make it, then we all got a good chance. But unfortunately, that didn't work out for him. He didn't last long, and I'm not blaming Farooq for that at all. I just think Ahmed didn't.
Because he was pushed. Nah, come on. Ahmed Johnson, bro. Man don't survive with Shawn Michaels. Come on, Shawn Michaels. You know the amount of matches I've seen with him and Shawn Michaels. Let's be honest, bruv. I don't see that many other matches with Shawn Michaels and the black man. Let's be honest. Do you know them way there? No. Let's be honest. You get me? But that's it, fam. Do you know what I mean? I don't see that many other. Like, listen, Ahmed, like he got pushed to the moon, fam. Do you know what I mean? He was strong. You know what I mean? He was winning pay-per-view after pay-per-view. Do you get me? Like, and he wasn't like first on the card or nothing. Like, man had a main, you know what I mean? He had a mainstay on the card and that. He was pushed. That's
he was squashing, man. He was squashing everyone, you know. When I look back at it now, I was thinking, is Vince just pushing the big man? Yeah, he's big. Come on, come with me, you know. But no, obviously.
I'll go into the Ahmed Johnson push because what happened was Vince had just come off the steroid trial, and when he was indicted, he relieved himself of some of his duties and other people picked up the slack. So when he came back, when he was found not guilty, he came back And WCW just started Nitro, and he was feeling a lot of pressure, and he needed to try something new. So he hired Cowboy Bill Watts. So Cowboy Bill Watts came in, and he gave Cowboy Bill Watts just, you run creative, and I'm gonna be an executive again.
Sounds familiar.
Okay, now he said, I'm gonna be an executive, and this is all you. They had a big talent meeting just after, in September of '95. And some of the talent were pissed because Cowboy was there. Some of them were happy because, you know, he was super smart. But when he was there, one of the people that he saw that caught his eye was Ahmed Johnson. Now, his name was Tony Norris. He was using his real name at the time. And so he saw Ahmed Johnson, and as soon as he saw Ahmed Johnson, Bill was just like, oh my God, look at the size of this guy. And he's big, he's muscular, he can't work either, which Bill liked. He sucked, and Bill was, oh my God, he's just so powerful. And we need to give him a name, so he came up with the name Buck Johnson. Yeah, I heard that. All right, but obviously '95 that wasn't going to work, so they wanted something more contemporary. So they gave it
by the way.
Jim Ross. Yeah, Ahmed Johnson was more contemporary, so they gave him that. But Cowboy was really into the whole, all right, we need to get him in there, and he needs to do something quick matches. Everything was a squash. He body slammed Yokozuna the first time he was on television. That was Cowboy Bill Watts. Now, Vince didn't give Cowboy Bill Watts total creative control because obviously Vince McMahon has to step in, and he's like, I don't like that, or whatever. So Cowboy walked out after about a month.
Okay, interesting.
But the push was already there. The Survivor Series was already booked. He already told Vince McMahon what to do with Ahmed Johnson. And to be fair to Vince McMahon, he didn't stop. But to Ahmed's credit, he got over. And he got over big. Like, he got over big. He would get really big pots coming out in the arena. He sold merch. Like, you know, those horrible T-shirts he used to wear with, you know, his face was always on. They sold a lot of those T-shirts.
Some of them jeans, them tight jeans T-shirt, yeah? Is that what them short, them...
With the boom bag.
Yes. The hot pants. Actually, you want to say something, but them hot pants.
Bro, I'm not saying anything, bro. I'm not saying anything, bro, but I told you that brother was dressed like a fire extinguisher. If you want to go on to what he was wearing, fam, man's wearing them Jeff Hardy armbands down on his legs and that, fam. Do you know what I mean? Those are ridiculous.
He's really wearing
Do you know what I mean, fam? Nah, man was wearing some Ahmed bondage and that, like, so I don't know what he was on, fam. Like, each of their own, though, innit?
So that's where the push came from. And like I said, to be fair to them, they didn't stop. They usually, sometimes, you know, for whatever reason, they stop pushes because they fancy doing it or whatever. But this guy, he was over. He got massive reactions. Some of the guys weren't keen on him. He was really rough. Yeah. He hurt a few wrestlers. Some of the guys didn't like his attitude already. But, you know, he says that it was because he was black. Other people just thought he was a dick. It could be one of either. It wouldn't surprise him if it was one of the other, to be fair, especially during that period. But yeah, and then July '96, he was Intercontinental Champion. He was really over, and they signed first black Intercontinental Champion, and then they signed Ron Simmons for this big program. For whatever reason, they decided to put them together.
Did they sign Ron Simmons specifically to feud with Ahmed? Is that one of the incentives?
Yes, Jim Ross, J.J. Dillon signed Ron Simmons on Jim Ross's request. Ron Simmons had been out wrestling for a bit. He was actually managing the warehouse for Coke. And because he couldn't get booked, the bookings were dried up.
Are we talking Pepsi or are we talking Johnson Johnson? Nah, boy, you got to be more specific. What sort of Coke we talking about? You know what I mean? Pablo Escobar and that.
You're right. I hear it.
To the children watching this and the parents, Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Coca-Cola. In Atlanta, Georgia.
And how important was Ron Simmons before he became Farooq? For those who don't know, how important was he? He was already a legend by then, right? I mean, when I say that, when I say legend, he already made history.
What? Because he was the first black.
He wasn't really the first. He was the first NWA/WCW world champion. I mean, there are other black world champions before him, but absolutely. I mean, the thing with Ron Simmons, and this is to WWE's credit.
Zack Ryder's belt, blood. You know what I mean? He done that like Zack Ryder's belt.
This is to WWE's credit. They market him as being some revolutionary thing, and that's good for Ron Simmons. But being there at the time, watching the business the way it went, he bricked, and that's not, you know.
No, you're right.
But
that's a fact.
They put him. He wasn't the guy. He wasn't that good of a worker. He wasn't that charismatic. He was a decent promo. I think he's an underrated promo, really. Yeah. But once again, I keep going back to this guy, and I feel like Cowboy Bill Watts came into WCW. He needed a black star. He hired Tony Atlas. He hired Junkyard Dog. Ron Simmons is there. Loved Ron Simmons. He's massive. He's tough. People were terrified of Ron Simmons in WCW. So Bill put the belt on him.
Would you say the quality of opponents is why the title reign bricked it? Because he faced some mid-card guys as well in his title reign.
Okay, yes. Okay, so one of the issues that Bill had with Ron, and this is Bill's fault, they didn't have anyone lined up for him. They booked him with the Barbarian and Dick Slater and guys like that.
But you still got to give man his flowers then, bro. Look at the amount of bums Deontay Wilder's face, bro. You know what I mean? It don't mean he's less of a champion, bro. Not a big man team.
They booked him in that era. They booked him against those opponents. So, I mean, to be fair, Ron didn't have the best start. But at the same time, they put him in there. He wasn't prepared for that. They just put him in there and he was world champion. There was no build-up. There was no nothing. And
He beat a monster in Vader.
out of nowhere, and he'd already failed multiple times before then. Yeah. And Bill was just desperate. He's like, all right, let's just get the belt on him. And you can't do that in pro wrestling, especially when you've got Ric Flair, a legacy of Ric Flair being your top guy, and then Sting, and then all of a sudden, it's like your next top babyface is Ron Simmons, who had been there for years at the bottom of the card. And it's just like, I don't know who the equivalent would be now in WWE, but imagine it was a like mid-bottom guy, I don't know.
Jinder came out of nowhere and won it.
No, we don't want to.
I'm thinking of a babyface. I don't know, but it was just really out of nowhere.
Okay, let me give you this. Because it was in the early 90s when he won the title, right? I equate Ron Simmons' run almost to like Bret Hart. Tag team guy, wins the title out of nowhere. Because it wasn't built. Bret Hart was Intercontinental champion, lost it, and one day he came back WWE champion from a house show.
Brett was different because Brett was super popular in his company, and he was great too.
And Hart Foundation was already a booming tag team.
Doom. All right. Okay, exactly. In Black History Month, I'm trying to give flowers, but they give it like, was it lilies? Was it the flowers they give it? I'm kidding.
Charisma when he changed to Farooq then, because I always known Farooq to have mic skills, boy. You get me? The way he cooked Ahmed Johnson, bro. You get me, fam?
But the phone conversation, that was serious.
Bro, the way he cooked him on the phone, the promos in the ring, the Nation of Domination.
You know, I'm from the streets, man. You're on the streets and that. You know,
that Farrakhan talk and that, bruv, you know what I mean?
I'm thinking like, it's
my man
really
came back
inside.
with a kufi like Eddie Murphy and Golden Child, bruv, you know what I mean? I was like, what?
That's down to management telling you, all right, be more natural. This is at a time when they really wanted to push natural characters. So it's like, all right, they came up with that gimmick themselves, that Nation of Domination thing. They said, be more, say what you want, sort of thing. Within reason, obviously. Don't swear. Say what you want. Say how you feel. That's how wrestling business was created. WWE kind of went away from that. With wrestling guys back in charge again, with Cornette and Jim Ross, it's kind of like, all right, we're going to go back to what we used to do. Now, say what you want. And he flourished in that area. He really did.
Put a pause on it actually for a second. USWA had the Nation of Domination gimmick happening first. So when was the transition? What was like the catalyst for him from being a gladiator into being the leader of Nation of Domination? Do you know particularly when?
He hated that gimmick, and Jim Ross hated it too. Jim Ross despised that gimmick because Ron Simmons was a football legend, and they put him in that helmet. And Jim Ross is getting more power. So it was like, all right, we need to get rid of this bullshit because we've got a guy here who's, badass and he looks like a joke,
So who approached for the Nation of Domination gimmick? Like who was it? Was it Cornette or was it?
Okay, so I would assume, I wouldn't remember. I probably should have done more research. But
No.
So it would have been, it most likely would have been Cornette to come up with that because Cornette was a person that came up with the gangsters gimmick in Smoky Mountain years before. So he would have probably been the guy, and they would have trialed it in USWA because back then they used to give guys mini pushes in USWA and trying to find their feet back there. And then they would then bring it onto the bigger stage. So they had PG-13, they had...
I remember, listen.
Are you talking about them extras they had in the group?
Yeah, that lady, he used to make her stand at the front. He used to wear that belt around. I'm like, bro.
They had like 3 men from the church in suits and that,
the guys that would take bumps.
They used to take bumps.
Those guys were wrestlers, a lot of those guys.
Mason as well.
He was real good.
Mason.
He was real good.
Bad boy.
He was a real lawyer,
He said that these men don't take bumps. I remember when he fired them, blood.
But they did it there, and then they brought it up, and they still had PG-13 and D-Lo. And then obviously eventually they cut those guys out and it became the main, the core of the Nation, the original wrestlers that everyone sees as the first group with Karma and Crush. Yeah, Crush was in there. Savio Vega, eventually it morphed into D-Lo, was a proper full-time member of Karma, and then Ahmed Johnson joined after that, and then obviously Mark Henry. But yeah, they would have trialed it before. But yeah, I mean, it was something fresh, it was something new, and they'd never done that in WWE. Bad News Brown in WWE was a kind of a black, pro-black militant, and he had the glove, and they always made sure he did that or whatever, but that was probably as close as they got.
Just to get into the meat and bone of things, what was your, memories of Ahmed Johnson versus Farooq? I'm gonna go with you, Skillit.
Obviously, Expressions mentioned it earlier, the kick in the damn ribs that caused this whole melee. I have vivid memories of Livewire when they used to go back and forth. Does anyone remember that? When
That's
they
the
used
one
to,
you mentioned. That's the one
you mentioned it. You did mention that.
Yeah,
You cooked him on the mic. Yeah, I remember that. Farooq was going in, and I remember their match at Royal Rumble 97.
San Antonio, Texas.
If I'm honest with you, no, I don't think that finished. And if I remember, and I know it kind of the feud carried on, and then Ahmed became a member. But I was so like in and out of that feud, bro. Like it started off, I was so excited for it at first, and then I just got like, what the hell is this?
How long did they feud for?
Okay.
Because it was long, innit, blood?
All right. Okay. I did my research, right? So the feud started like late '96.
July 96, really, because obviously Simmons attacked him.
Yeah, he's right.
Kicked him in the...
It was a year, okay? By like June, July, by June, from May.
All I know is Farooq had like 2 gimmicks, lost his hairline and everything, like, so it must have been about 2 years at least. Do you know what I mean?
I'm thinking, Ahmed's last match was February 98. Who did he wrestle? He wrestled them.
Come on, bro.
Sorry. Finish.
Yeah, land, bro, sorry.
The whole feud, the man all joined Nation of Domination. I don't even know how long he was.
A month.
Blood, well, I swear it was more, but he got injured, didn't he? He had like knee injury.
It carried over.
That was it, yeah. He was there for a month, bruv, and then that was it. Then on the shelf, bruv, I swear he actually won his match and then they beat him up. That made no sense. That made no sense. I'm telling you, bruv.
Very silly.
Blacks, also your views. Is it the same on the feud between Ahmed Johnson and...
Listen, when I've looked back at it, because I was, how old was I? 1? Do you know what I mean? When I look back at it, it's, bro, I'll just see Farooq with a helmet, just come in, he's got a girl there, you're thinking, okay. And then the phone conversation, it's just like, okay, when these people are gonna on site, and then, yeah, man, that's all I can really gather from it.
You were mentioning the Chicago street fight earlier. That's what I remember. Yeah, I remember that.
So I watched the interview that Ahmed Johnson did recently. He mentioned how he got his receipt against Farooq in that match. He busted, he damaged his tailbone or something?
He separated his shoulder. He pulled him. Did you see it?
Yeah, I've seen the match.
You see, Farooq was standing on the middle rope on the outside, and then Ahmed pulled him because Farooq had a noose. He was holding a noose, or he had it around something or other, and Ahmed pulled him way harder than he was supposed to, and Simmons came down and landed on his shoulder on the outside. But he did that just because we haven't discussed it, because in Ron Simmons' first WWE appearance, he came and he kicked Ahmed Johnson so hard that he cut his kidney.
Yeah, we discussed that, blood. Shattered ribs, blood. You know what I mean? That was
Totally, purposely ruptured his kidney.
And then you all had to drop the title, innit?
He was off for...
The title from then, innit? Yeah, the IC title. You gave him the punt, boy, you know what I mean, before Orton. You know what I mean?
Watch the footage, you can see Ahmed, he's literally open, he's giving himself to Ron Simmons, and Ron Simmons comes out, and if you see that kick, you go back and watch it, because I saw it on Twitter recently, and I was like, holy, I mean, he really kicked him as hard as he could.
In that, bro. Trust me, fam. And then the blue singlet, blood, you know what I mean?
Caused a blue singlet, he had frilly, like a skirt kind of thing on his singlet. Yeah.
The carrying cross NXT trunks.
And he caused internal bleeding. The guy was in intensive care. For 3 days he was in intensive care, Ahmed Johnson, because of that one kick, because he was bleeding. He had internal bleeding, and he had sepsis, and it was bad. So, you know, and he done it on
That's why they were
purpose.
cussing each other on live wire.
It was a shoot.
Yeah, that was
It was a shoot. They couldn't stand each other.
But obviously I don't want to linger on the kick on the kidney, but you say, because you said he did it on purpose, was there a reason behind him doing it, or was it jealousy? Ahmed just said it was jealousy.
Okay, so Ahmed says it was jealousy. Other people in the company say it was jealousy too. And I think that Ron Simmons, because he'd been out of the business for a while, he hadn't made any money in wrestling for a few years, and I think that he was probably at home and he saw this guy, green as fuck, not any good, couldn't cut a promo, while I'm a former world champion, sitting at home, working a regular job. They bring me in, and another thing you understand, wrestling was different back then. It's not like the way it is now. It was like the Wild Wild West back then. Even in WWE, it was the Wild West. Guys could get away with a lot of shit. So it's like, all right, cool, I'm gonna get you. I don't like you, and I want your spot. So he came
It
in.
was accidental, blood. You know what I mean? I think it was accidental. Come on, bro. It's a man's debut, innit, man? It's the man's debut. You get me, fam? He was running out. You know what I'm saying? The helmet got in the way. Like just one little kick.
I can tell you. I can pretty much tell you that it wasn't. It was intentional. He done that on purpose.
All right. Fast forwarding ahead, we've been talking about Nation of Domination. What is your memories of Nation of Domination? I'm gonna go with you, Skillit.
Good memories, man. Great aesthetics, great entrances, great in-ring promos. Ron Simmons just, becoming a bit more of a militant black guy character opposed to his, his former promos before. And just the evolution of Nation Domination as well, not just having like Crush. And I didn't really, if I'm honest with you, when Crush and all them joined, I started hating it. And then when it got rejuvenated with The Rock and Mark Henry, D-Lo, Godfather.
What about the Ahmed portion? Were you feeling the Ahmed portion when he turned heel?
When Ahmed joined, that just didn't make any sense. Especially after all the beef these two had, to put them together.
So when it turned to Black History Month group, you got gas then? That's what you're trying to say? Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty much what you're trying to say, isn't it? You get me, blood? Like when it turned to 8, 9 o'clock, blood, man got gas, yeah? All right, cool. Well, we hear that still. No, let's be honest.
What about you, X? What do you think about Nation?
Bro, come on, listen, Nation of Domination. Obviously, I'm not gonna lie, when they had Vanilla Ice Cubes rapping them out to the ring and that, I don't even know who them guys were, bruv. You know what I'm saying? That part with like Crush and Savio Vega and that. Nah, when Farooq fired them, man, blood, you know what I mean? And he fired them bums and was like, you don't even take bumps, yeah? And then man brought out Godfather and D-Lo, you know what I mean? Like, I was gassed. And then obviously Ahmed Johnson, that was what it was, you know what I mean? Like,
so no one felt the Hilton at all? Like,
no, you know what it was? It's not like I didn't feel it. I thought, okay, this could be something interesting. But by that time, I was so tapped out with Ahmed Johnson that I just didn't believe he'll be there long enough. I just didn't see, at the time, I didn't see it.
When the man said, I looked into Farouk's eyes, man knew he was going to get beaten up, yeah? Because you see when the man goes, no man takes orders from another man, and you saw Farooq looking at him, and I'm like, nah.
He was stunned.
You're like, yeah, it's over, bro. It's over.
Stunned,
you know what I mean?
stunned,
Ahmed Johnson was talking a bit too much,
Too
man.
much.
You know what I mean? He was moving like, you get me? He was the leader in that. So like, man knew that he was gonna get beaten down, but I didn't know it was gonna happen that quick. And obviously, because of his injury, it's probably why you get me. They just rushed it on TV, and then The Rock came in, blood, and that's when everything changed for me, blood. Do you know what I mean? Man came in with the shorts and the loafers, fam. Do you know what I mean? And rock bottom, my man, yeah. And Farooq, what? Nah, that was it for me, bro. Yeah, fam, the watches, and he gave man a photo of. Bro, that was the one for me.
So what do you think is like the best version of Nation of Domination for you guys?
I think when The Rock came in and Farouk's doing that promo and The Rock's just doing the expressions like, who's this guy? Do you know what I mean? Like, just taking the piss. Do you know what I mean?
So you guys saying circa 1998 with Mark Henry involved, yeah? That's the strongest version, yeah?
Yeah, Mark Henry, Godfather, D-Lo, all them, man.
You can't touch them, lot.
What about post Farooq being in the group? When it's just the Nation?
Nah, it was alright, but nah, Farooq, like, man, like the
dynamic.
Yeah, 100%.
He was the uncle. He was the uncle. Like, this is what it is, and this is what we're gonna do. You know, Rock's like little nephew. Yeah. You know, I'm flashing.
The Rock came in and turned him to the man. You know, the old man in the barbershop, like two trims a year, blood. You know, that's what he tried to turn Farooq to, bro. Yeah, I couldn't believe it,
It's
bro.
all wild, bro.
Get me?
It's crazy. Yeah.
So in terms of representation, did representation mean anything to you back in the 90s? I know we were all kids back then.
It meant everything to me. Like, to see black wrestlers in a company where is, as a kid, we all knew. Let's be honest. Yes. We all knew there was, slightly racist. It's a slightly racist company. Like, and why do you think everybody got so emotional when Kofi won the title? Because till this day, we still feel in a certain way that it will never really happen. Yeah. So especially back then, you never really thought it would ever happen. So to see like black wrestlers being pushed to the forefront, when The Rock. I know we're not talking about The Rock, but I have to mention him. When The Rock just bowled through after being Rocky Maivia and he'd be like, you know what, I'm The Rock. It was just like, it was a blessing, bro. It's a blessing in this. It was like, that is what I want to see.
I'm not even gonna lie, yeah. Them times like when man are 5, 6 years old, bro. Like I said, I thought Wildman was black blood. Mark Mero in it, you know. So I didn't even know. It's only when I look back in it and I realized how much TV time Ahmed Johnson and Farooq actually got, how much time that they got in the pay-per-view, how much they built the story. I'm actually more respecting it now than back then. You know what I'm saying? Because back then, bro, I was colourless blood. Man didn't know. Obviously, you man are talking about Coco Beware and that. Yeah, them things there. Like I wouldn't see it like, oh, it's a black man being da 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 da. I see that like, who's this clown blood? I don't like this guy.
You took
Like
it
I
from
wouldn't
what you saw.
legit. You know, certain man be like, oh, he's the only black guy. Let me watch his match. Like Junkyard Dog. I remember my granddad talking about Junkyard Dog, and I'm seeing him with the chain and barking, and all of them things didn't mean nothing to me until I got older. Do you know what I'm saying, fam? Because back then when I was watching them things, like I'll be real, it was more like
You look at it as a fan.
yeah, that
Who's
was
this
it,
guy?
innit?
Who-
But then
who-
when I
who?
look back now, that's when I could say, you get me. But obviously, when I was watching, obviously things have happened in my time. Like you get me, Silverback. That was my time. I knew exactly what time it was when Mark Henry got called the Silverback. Like, do you know what I mean? That's
Wild.
what- You know what I mean?
That lasted for like a week, I feel like.
Boy, is it? Because I remember he got called it again, Michael Cole. He's like, don't call me that. Like, you remember Michael Cole did it about 2 weeks later and he switched.
It's a Silverback.
He actually switched on live
Just
TV.
just a quick mention that, funny enough here, Ryan Reeves, aka Ryback, that was his nickname in OVW, and he actually got angry about it. That's why he changed his name to Ryback, because the Silverback name got taken, and he got angry saying they stole my name. But it's a name Mark Henry didn't want. But yeah, guys,
Ryback still moaning on Twitter, you know, about WWE stealing things from him.
He needs to let it go, man.
Bro,
Heal,
he does
heal,
need to let it
heal,
go. Like,
heal,
it's
heal,
crazy, bro.
heal.
my next question, because you know I led with Ahmed Johnson, is should he be in the Hall of Fame?
100%, fam. 100%.
Have you seen the
Bro, how you man put Goldberg in the Hall of Fame and these bam? What are you talking about? Ahmed Johnson? Nah. Man, I need to put respect on Ahmed Johnson's name.
Have you seen the people that's in the Hall of Fame? Ahmed Johnson is.
Vince McMahon's limo driver's in the Hall of Fame.
He's the first ever black. He's made history. That's a whole. Once you've made history, if you've made history and you're in the history books for a reason, you should definitely be in the Hall. Automatically, you should be in the Hall of Fame.
He obviously left on bad terms, isn't it? Why he's not in the Hall of Fame.
But there's been other people that left on bad terms and they will be able to come back. So it's quite bizarre that Ahmed Johnson, who, by the way, in 1998, February 1998, he left because his sister was dying. He didn't let anyone know. He basically no-showed a couple of shows and they fired him.
All right, well, how many black people left on bad terms and made back the Hall of Fame then? Because those are the questions you got to ask, man. You know them ways.
You kind of say Bobby Lashley because he didn't leave on good
No,
terms.
Hall of Fame, blood. He ain't in the Hall of Fame.
He's going to be someday. But
Yeah, of course.
I'm thinking ahead. Yeah,
but
you're
that's
right.
what I'm saying,
yeah,
bro. Man's
yeah.
active. I'm talking about, do you know what I mean? Who? Like, let's be honest, innit? Let's chew the fat. Like, you get me? What black wrestlers have caused a ruckus left and like them man have reached out to them? Do you know what I mean?
I'd have to have a look at who's in that Hall of Fame, really. I mean, they could put him in, but
When WWE do Black History Month and that, man, see Tony Atlas, blood, you know what I mean?
Tony Atlas is in that Hall of Fame. Ahmed Johnson, look, he left and they never called him back. He went to WCW for a bit and Big T, he went to WCW and after that he did movies and then I think he was arrested for I think he was pimping or he was
Yeah, so Harlem, so Booker T,
anyway, but he was really bad then. He got gassed so quick. But then I think he quit actually. I could be wrong, but yeah, but after that he did movies and for a bit. He played Suge Knight in a movie I watched once.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, is it? What film was that?
It was an MC Hammer biopic.
Yeah.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, and
Got yourself, bro. I totally forgot about that. I forgot about that, bro.
Romany Malco played MC Hammer in that movie. I'm pretty sure that's the one. But you know, and also, what does it mean if Ahmed Johnson a Hall of Fame? I mean, to them, I mean.
well, for me, I feel like you get people on Twitter or on social media. It's easily led. If you promote someone, this is a legend, they'll go for it. For example, Ken Shamrock did a lot for the wrestling business because the WWE never mentioned him. You never really hear people bring that up a lot.
Nah, he's got to be in the Hall of Fame, blood. Who else is there from Pearl River, Mississippi, blood? I ain't never heard no one. Nah, let's be honest, blood. Who's from there? Other than Ahmed Johnson. Come on, give his man his flowers, bro. You got to do it from Pearl River, blood. What do you mean, Pearl River plunge? You might have mountain plunges that he handed out. You know the way there, blood.
Shamrock?
Huh?
Were you not talking about Shamrock?
Nah, we're talking about Ahmed Johnson. He's saying who actually is in Pearl River, Mississippi.
Oh,
yeah, like who else is from Pearl River, Mississippi, bro? But that's what I mean.
you wouldn't even
And he wasn't really from there. That was his gimmick hometown. He's from Texas, but yeah.
Sounds the same place to me anyway. Do you know what I mean? Let's be honest, fam. You get me from where Deontay Wilder and that's from, bruv. Just them places there, bro. I swear down. Tuscaloosa or wherever that is, bruv. Wherever.
But just to wrap things up here, guys, what is your view on black wrestling representation today? I'm going to start with you, Knowledge.
Oh, it's night and day. It's way different from when I was a kid. It's like you can go on any wrestling television show and you'll see multiple black people and black women too in key positions on the card. It's like, but yeah, I mean, even in WWE, there are black people in key positions, like top woman. And, you know, I saw Lashley's got a group now in WWE with other black wrestlers and stuff. Yeah, I mean, Vince McMahon over the years has really improved in terms of how he pushes black. I mean, he faced a lot of criticism for years.
Thank Triple H for the Lashley thing, not Vince, blood. You can thank Vince for almost, blood. Do you know what I mean? That's my guy, by the way.
Yeah. But I mean, like, so I mean, yeah, nowadays it's completely different. I mean, like, you've got black people in key positions on the card, and it's, you know, it's no one in, one out mentality. It's, you know, multiple black people on TV every single show now.
Blackz.
I think the culture is great, man. I think even with shows like Wally Mania, like going to LA and just seeing black people, black wrestlers, it's a blessing. Mercedes Moné now, superstar. You know, like, you couldn't, you know what I mean? You couldn't think of this 10, 15 years ago, and now look, it's magnificent.
X.
I think that we should be thanking Farooq, blood. You know, them way there. Thank Farooq, bro, because you get me. I saw that promo in the middle of the ring. He told Vince McMahon, bro, why ain't there no black champions? You know what I'm saying? Man, you ripped, man. He's like, why ain't there no... Man said Ahmed Johnson should have been world champion. He even said that and he was feuding with him. Do you know what I'm saying? And obviously, with the representation now, like, man, you've seen it grow, innit? Like, you've seen, like, Crime Time, and then how Crime Time, how they've brought in the Street Profits, and you see, it ain't nothing like Crime Time, because they're not really doing that anymore. Obviously, a black man will act like a black man, so it's not like, I don't feel like it's forced. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it's them being themselves. Same with Bianca Belair. Do you know what I mean? At first, there was a lot of snapping and all of that, but now she's really turned into her own, and she's like the top of the card. Do you know what I mean? She's the top of the card. Like the way she's almost like Roman Reigns in a women's division. Do you know what I'm saying? So man, actually have to respect like what WWE's doing. Obviously, there are guys like, you get me, like the New Day and that. I was happy when Big E won the WWE Championship. That really meant something to me when Big E, and like when I interviewed him and I told him that. But it's one of them ones where like, I feel like you're not, like I don't see like now, a black man can't reach a certain level, innit? Like, no disrespect to Kofi Kingston, innit? Yeah, but come on, bro. The man's from Africa. The man had him doing up a Jamaican accent. You get me? Made him go through all of that. He shut his mouth, worked hard, Kofi Mania. WWE champion.
Shout out Triple H for that moment.
Yeah, 100%. Do you know what I'm saying? So like WWE's, they're growing, man. They're growing. Like that's one thing I can say, innit? Like, and I think that the representation is a lot better. And you get me, when they do toe the line, like we were saying, with the Mark Henry, the Silverback thing, that thing didn't last. Do you know what I mean? When they do toe the line, there's enough voices and there's enough people around to say, oh, you know what? This isn't right. That isn't right. So, nah, man, got to big up WWE now, innit? Like, you're not going to see anything outrageous nowadays because it'll get shut down before we even see it.
True. Skill.
Yeah, no, I just echo what everybody said, the same sentiments. Like, where wrestling was, from where I grew up watching it to where it is now. Very, very good place, very healthy place for black representation. Black women, black men are just being seen and they're being themselves. It's not a stereotype like we always used to see all the time. And it's in a really good, healthy place. So I've got nothing but good things to say about that.
Also, even representation in terms of content creators. I mean, look at the brothers I have today. It goes to show you that if you're a person of color, you too can have the opportunity to do what they can do as well. Say your social media, where people can find you, and what platforms you're involved with, starting with knowledge.
Nah, you can catch me on Twitter at GrapsKnowledge. Like, that'll do.
You can catch me at the Kick Out podcast with my brother DJ Ace and the Gorilla Position podcast. Shout outs to my brothers. And my name is Skillit. Follow me at Skillit World, SKILLIT.
When's your album coming out?
Album coming at the end of the year, bro. I'm not gonna give a date yet because you know what I'm saying, but it's coming.
Yeah, and I'm Sat E Niangi. You can follow me at Sat Next To on Twitter. That's the only place you can find me.
Expressions oozing. Man's on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. All them thing there, you know what I mean? So you can just put in Google at Expressions Oozing. And yeah, fam, you already know, blood.
And your boy Sam Blackz, part of Rest Things, the coolest podcast in the fucking world.
Amen.
Catch me on Business Before Pleasure, on Instagram, Twitter, Mr. S Blackz, and Rest Things on all social platforms. Skillit.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. And yeah, leave a comment down below. Holler at us on social media. It's been a pleasure hosting this. Yes, Rest Things, Sat E.